Welcome everybody on the 5th of July 2021. It's really fantastic to be here for the latest Jodel webinar. Today it's my absolute pleasure to be working with Charlie Foote from Bili and from the amazing Bernadette Holmes as well. The format of today's session, we're going to start off with a presentation from Charlie when he's going to talk us a little bit about what Bili's all about, a bit of his backstory as well. We're then going to watch a video clip extolling the virtues of virtual exchanges, and then we're going to have more of a sort of a wider conversation around virtual exchanges based on everyone's experience. So it's going to be really lovely to hear everyone's questions and everyone's comments. I can see in the audience there are some huge supporters of virtual exchanges and the power of forging links with schools and with students from around the world. So it's really lovely to have such a great audience tonight. And without further ado, I would like to hand over to Charlie to kick us off and tell us all about Bili and how he came up with the idea and what it's all about. So over to you, Charlie, to start us off.
Hi everyone, and hi Joe. Yeah, just getting started. I won't mention too much about the weather where I am, as I'm in Valencia at the moment, so I don't want to be too. Yes, just in terms of starting off really with the backstory of Bili. I was teaching languages for 4 years in London secondary school. And really the issue that I found, I wanted to motivate my students through real communication. And I tried lots of different approaches to this. And I really struggled to get that communication going in a manner that was regular. I knew that the students were communicating to other students, and also inclusive, so that actually I knew that all of my students were able to participate to the same extent and were able to keep this going throughout the school year. I was in the sort of position where actually we were able to launch a pilot over the first year, so at the same time as running the department, and we were able to run a pilot study in the summer term working with 3 other schools. And, you know, that was at that point when really managed to identify the impact that just that regular communication with a partner of their own age that really has on the student's motivation in language learning. And Bili is all around making that experience accessible to teachers and schools, and really connecting students so that they can support each other through language learning. It was in that summer term, actually, I think I presented Bili for the first time at Illich. I know Joe was there, and I think with quite a lot of people I've seen a few names on the sort of event who were there as well, which is in very early phases. But now I'll run through for everyone just a kind of quick overview of how it works now, what it kind of looks and feels like as a platform. And when we go on to one of the test teacher accounts, so you can see and get an idea of what that might be like for you. So in terms of starting Bili, I will just say, if you do have any questions as we go through, do pop the questions in the chat, and we will either respond to them or pick up on them later in the discussion. The sort of 3 principles that I felt were really important. I needed to know that we were communicating with another school, and that teachers on each side were in that position of moderating those exchanges. I also needed to know that it wasn't going to be a huge burden on my time. Something really important is that actually through exchange is that can complement the learning in the classroom. And if you imagine just taking those speaking and writing tasks that your students might be doing, and actually instead of performing them in the class or writing them in their books to their teacher, they're writing to a real person, or they're speaking to a real person, they're receiving communication and a real response from their partner. And really that real communication and support between partners and peer-to-peer support is something that's really has been quite hard to harness in languages. I think in the classroom, actually equipping the students to give feedback on other students' language is difficult, and it's something that can really happen, be really beneficial between native speakers. So in terms of the principles of how it all works, a teacher will upload their class list, and the students are paired up automatically with students in the class abroad. How this happens is that every student creates a profile and they choose 3 interests. And through that, the system will actually choose students to pair up with another student who has the most interests in common. So hopefully you're starting from a starting point where actually the students have something in common and they're kind of getting along. We've got things to exchange about. Teachers set the tasks for their own students, and really importantly, we say weekly tasks, but that's according to kind of how your term dates, and you can plan that out through that communication with the other school and the other teacher. The task can be speaking or written tasks, and we'll go into that in a second. And the students give regular feedback to each other's work and respond in their own language. I should mention, I'm not going into detail at this stage in terms of the matching and how we manage that between schools. We really try and support schools who do have existing links already. So to actually join with their partners as a way to kind of consolidate and grow that exchange. But also you can join, you set up your school profile, you can see any of our network of French, German, Spanish speaking schools and send invitations to them to connect with you throughout. Student profile looks a little bit like this. So they'd write a little bit about themselves. They have a little bit of support to do that. They can choose an avatar. As a teacher, you can enable them to upload profile pictures, but obviously that's over to the teachers to decide whether it's appropriate or not. They choose their interests, and as I said, that kind of enables them to match with one another. This is a screenshot just of a student dashboard, so kind of what it looks like from a student's point of view. So a student would have their task on the left-hand side here. You can see that they would have their partner's avatar just underneath, and the sort of each task goes through a sort of a few stages before the task is complete. So if it's flashing a speech bubble, it means they've got to complete a task. Every task does go through the teacher first. So the teacher can log in and review all the tasks in one go. So they can scroll down the list and just see if there's anything that a student might not have written enough, or they just want to send it back to just kind of change a couple of things before going to their partner, who would respond in their own language. And I think this is a really important point with Bili. I think that because we have these 2 parallel message streams, it means that the students are supporting one another to the same extent. So it's a real relationship of mutual support. And I think this is one of the things that Ofsted picked up on their recent review, was talking about language exchanges was, didn't find the most helpful comment, but in terms of that sometimes students can feel a bit, that their partner speaks much better English than they speak Spanish, for instance, and therefore they feel. But the fact that is that this is a real relationship of mutual support, where they're both able to support each other equally through that. The task can be either speaking or writing tasks. So for each task, as a teacher, you decide whether they're going to upload an audio file or a video or just a written task. They on either side of the exchange don't need to be related. And really what I think what's is that we really believe in being able to complement the teaching that's going on in the classroom.
Charlie, before we move on, we've had a couple of questions about GDPR. Could you mention how Bili is GDPR compliant, please? That'd be great.
Yeah, so we have a complete policy on the website, so you can see that, and I'll share a link in the chat when in a moment, which you can see. Essentially, we I think from a sort of first point, we do not and there's the information in terms of where we store the data and the data processing, etc. Our sort of basic principles is that we verify every school before we give any school access to the website teachers add the student details to the website, so to create the student accounts. Students on the other side and other teachers can only see the first name and first letter of a surname of their partners. If, for instance, you do have school email addresses, you can add student emails as well, in which case they receive reminders and things like that. Otherwise, you can just put in the student names and share the onboarding links with them. It's something that, yes, so that's kind of our basic principles. But as I say, I can share the kind of the legal side of things and the full GDPR policy in the comments later.
Awesome. We've got another question from Jimena, which is this for language learners? E.g., if there was a student from Spain learning English, could they communicate with a student from France learning English as well, or how does this exactly work? So my understanding is that it's schools who register, add their classes, so it's for inter-class interaction rather than individuals wanting to sign up and connect with other individual learners. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think something that's really core in how we've set up Bili is very much around the teacher plays a really central role, because I think whilst connecting native speakers is really powerful and really, really important, that real communication, I think that the learning and that opportunity to actually apply language which complements what they're learning in the classroom in a real context, I think that's what's really powerful. So actually students are learning with that kind of light touch structure from their teacher and receiving that really personalized feedback from their partner on an ongoing basis.
Fantastic. That's lovely.
Perfect. I'll carry on, and I do stop me if I haven't been keeping an eye on the questions just yet.
That's right. I've been collecting the questions. Those two questions, I thought I would put them to you straight away because I thought they were very important. But for the benefit of everyone, feel free to carry on writing questions, and then we'll cover all the other questions before we look at the video clip, if that's okay.
Brilliant. And this is a kind of like what a task would look like to a student's point of view. As a teacher, when you plan out the task, you can also preview what it would look like for a student as well. So you can see that. You can add in an overall question, support fields, and this would be a written task. On the next page, you've got a kind of example of what a sort of speaking task would look like. You can also break the task down as subtasks. So for instance, to write about something and then record a video of them describing something as well, and take a photo for the next task and send a description of that. You can ask them to do all three of those things in the same kind of overall task. In terms of replying to their partners, what we have is we have a marking code. So the first phase is really responding to the language. We've got spelling, grammar, wrong word, and omission, and they can highlight any errors and also add comments in their own language to support their partners in kind of correcting their mistakes. But we keep these stages separate because actually, importantly, afterwards, they respond to the content. And, one of the things we always say to teachers getting started on Bili is to really try and encourage your students to ask questions to their partners, because then that conversation really flows. As a teacher after this, obviously, you can keep track of all of the kind of tasks as they go through. You'll see completed tasks. You can export tasks as a PDF. So if you want to print them out, you want students to redraft responses, etc., they can do that. And you can post favorite tasks to your profile, which other students can see, and you can kind of model some of the best tasks. Through one of the features that we do have is a topic bank. So any tasks which are grouped into a series of tasks or a topic, which is then automatically saved to a shared topic bank. So that means that any schools using Bili can log on and see what topics are already there, add them to their class, adapt them as they wish. And it means that not everyone's reinventing the wheel if you have already done or if you're planning a kind of similar things, and also useful for sharing resources within a department, for instance. In terms of sort of other features, we do have a live chat as well, so that students can communicate in real time. What happens with the live chat is that the transcripts of any of the conversations that go on, so for instance, the student can see any other partners who are online at any point, they can send them an instant message, they respond to each other. That's then appears on the teacher's dashboard the next time they log in as a transcript, so you can see any of those conversations which have taken place. And of the forum where the teachers plan the topics out on each side, and they kind of act as the forum moderator through that. And with each forum topic, teachers can kind of set the level of moderation, whether they want to check every comment, every etc., or whether they actually are happy to let their students kind of run with it. We also have a Bili chat, which we've mostly used with universities so far, which is our video chat app, where students are grouped into small groups with some of their classmates and their partners, and they can have sort of group chats through that. They can have video calls within their group, or communicate with their individual partners as well. These are just kind of an overview of our features and our pricing model. So we just offer an annual license, which has no limits in terms of numbers of students, no limits in terms of numbers of teachers or languages. So if you want to use it in multiple languages across the department, obviously that's possible. And we really want to encourage this as something that you sort of build out across the school. And we've seen it done really successfully as schools have kind of got used to using Bili and kind of grown their exchanges. In terms of our approach, and we will touch a little bit on this in the sort of wider discussion, in moving into the new academic year, we've recognized that it has been a real challenge, obviously without any of the trips that would normally be run within your departments, but also in terms of being able to run online exchanges and leaving Erasmus Plus as well. What we are doing is we are offering free access to schools, so that might be any of your partner schools, to connect with schools in the UK as an opportunity, because actually I think one of the things which is really key for exchanges is that reciprocity, that actually the students and the teachers and the schools are able to support each other, and that's kind of our approach going forwards. We do have a couple of tutorial videos which you'll be able to see on the website, and also a little bit more detail of how it works. What I will do very quickly is I'll just switch over to a teacher account just on the web, and just talk through a little bit of how that works.
Just while you're doing that, Charlie, we had a question around the pricing that you just displayed. So the question is the pricing per school? What I'm thinking of, if say you had a multi-academy trust who wanted to say use Bili across the trust, could they sort of get in touch with you and maybe negotiate like for a wider number of schools or what have you, or is it sort of like regimented in that's the price per school and that's it?
So that is our cost per school. We do work with a couple of multi-academy trusts, and yes, I think we can have those conversations. I think obviously, and I think in terms of kind of providing the support and getting multiple schools set up and actually being able to kind of how a rollout across different schools might look like, and also in terms of pricing as well. So yes.
Awesome, that's great. We've got some other questions, but we'll lead those a bit later on. I just thought that anything to do with money, I think it's important to mention those straight away, as it were. That's great. Okay.
Yeah. And I think we've taken. I think it's really important for us to be really transparent about actually what what the costs are, but also I think really the vision is that this isn't just something that one teacher will be using with one class. Actually, we want to support schools in really being able to make online exchange accessible for all their students. We have a large network of schools abroad, and I think that's something that's really beneficial.
Awesome, and that's irrespective of numbers, isn't it? That's right, irrespective of numbers in the
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, let's talk about the tutorial videos. Brilliant.
Absolutely. So here we've just got a teacher account, which from teachers and student accounts, they've both got a little tutorial button they can click, which kind of runs through and walks them through the dashboard and how everything works. So if at any point anyone's stuck, then they can always come back to that. So teacher, obviously this is just a test account, so we've just got one student, Harry Sparrow, who's paired up with James B. As I said, partner students, we don't see their surnames, but you can see who your student's paired up with, what the tasks they're on and what stage they're at. And Harry, you can see at this point, needs to reply to his partner. So in terms of kind of like managing the topics, can
I just check? At the moment, we're just seeing the presentation. Are you showing us the website?
Right.
So what you need to do, if you do new share and then share your screen, which will be like your desktop, and then we'll be able to see the website.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Sorry, slight technical issues there. Right. Let's do that.
That's it. Right. We can see the website now. Yep. All good.
Yeah. So now I'll just run back quickly through there, so you can see here's Harry's Sparrow. So you can actually see this now, though what I was pointing at. As I said, when you do receive tasks, either tasks that your students have completed or their replies, they'll all appear here. And you can click through to a new screen where you can scroll down all of the tasks. And if you need to they're automatically set to approve, but you can add a little comment of might need to do. So that should a couple of minutes just to kind of check how that is. And then so you can see the different tasks. You've got the student and their partner there. I was just moving on to topics. So you've got this kind of where you manage your topics and you can set the dates of when they would be due. You can click through to the topic bank, and you can also see the partners that they tasks that they've been set.
Can I just ask you not to show any student names? I mean, I think that you've shown
these are. I was just saying that this is a test account, so these are made up.
That's fine. No problem at all for you. That's all right. It means I don't have to go. I don't have to go back in it and then mask the names.
We're not.
Just as long as everyone understands that from the recording, these are made up names. They're not real people's names. Okay, brilliant.
No,
Sorry.
No. And you can track your students' progress all through this, and also download a report of where they've got to, so how many tasks they've completed, how many stars you've given them for as a kind of reward of what they've done well, and things like that. There is also messaging to your corresponding teachers, which is really important. I think having that regular communication between the teachers, any of the teachers your students have paired up with, is really, really important, just to kind of be on top of your term dates or anything that might be stopping students responding to one another. So I'm going to stop share there. I think it might be a good chance just to pick up on any questions if there's anything.
Yeah. So we had a question from Susie about the partners. So she's a big fan of connecting with schools in the Francophonie. So the question is, with the number of different schools that you're working with in different countries, is it possible to connect with schools in other French-speaking places? Or could you maybe just talk a little bit more just for us to get an understanding of, if let's say you're a French, German, Spanish teacher, the sorts of countries and schools, be it primary, secondary, or what have you, that you could then connect with, just to give us an idea, if that's okay.
Yeah, so we do have, I think our approach has generally been through France, Spain, and Germany initially as our how we would reach out. That said, we do have quite a few schools in different parts of the world. For instance, we have at least one exchange running with a school in Réunion, and we have, obviously at university level, we've recently run our projects with universities in Francophone Africa. And I think it is really important to be able to, and obviously it is open to schools in different countries as well, beyond the France, Spain, Germany, etc. And we have run exchanges with countries in South America, etc. as well. And that will be displayed on the as you go into school matching, and you can see where the schools are from and kind of if you're looking for different.
But if you, I think you said this already, but if you had an existing link, you could get in touch with yourselves and then ask to use the tool as a way of being able to connect and do all the things you would normally do. You would just have the existing connection already. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do encourage schools to kind of refer their partner schools, because I think having those existing connections actually does make that initial kind of setting expectations between the schools. It does just make that little bit easier, which is good to do.
That's brilliant. I had a few thoughts about the messaging and the forums that you talked about. So you said that you can have moderation for those, which is obviously really key. But as a teacher, would you be able to turn off the messaging opportunity in the forum if you didn't want to have, particularly, let's say if it was a primary school? Would that be a possibility?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they can restrict access, or and in terms of our subscriptions. So Bili, the sort of initial subscription actually is without, it's just for sort of exchange functionality without the live features. The sort of Bili Plus includes the forum and live chat, and Bili Chat is with the video chat features as well. So it kind of, I think it. We do have controls for the teachers and the school admins in terms of moderating kind of what of interaction you want between your students and what classes as well. So
okay, so just on that point, and not wanting to be a stickler, but can you just clarify with, say, the basic package? Is it possible, for example, to have student-to-student interaction, or does everything go through the teacher, or is everything seen first and then can be moderated, or can you just clarify exactly how that works?
Yeah, so in terms of student to student, for live chat, so students can see obviously any of the students in the class who are online, and actually about those who are not online but they receive the message later, and they can send them a message, and the students respond to them. After that, teachers on both sides, when they log in, they will see the transcripts of those discussions. So obviously that's after the fact, but they can still get complete visibility over all interactions. Fantastic,
that's great. Hopefully that's answered any thoughts in the chat about moderation. I know that this is a real hot potato for everyone, so if you want to ask Charlie anything else about GDPR or moderation, please ask now. We've had a question from Jimena again. Is there a trial period once we enroll a school? I mean, could we try it out before the annual subscription? Do you offer that as an option?
We don't generally run trial periods, but however, if there is a school with an existing partner, we can kind of like look to run a trial with a class, but it's something we can discuss. I think it's generally just from a point of view, there is quite a lot of work involved in actually setting up that initial exchange. But obviously we can, we give demos and we can show exactly how everything works and provide a lot of support in terms of getting schools set up on each side. But yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. I think that's everything we've got so far. Feel free, everyone, to put other questions in the chat. Okay. So Margarita is asking, how about monitoring? Oh yeah, great question, Margarita. How about monitoring bad language, bullying, or misbehaviour? Is it the teacher's role or is it Bili's role? Great question, Charlie.
This is very much the teacher's role. So the teachers do have full visibility, because it's very much according to the school's, your own school's policy around how you might treat between students. You do see all of the communication, and I think that's down to the teachers on each side to kind of to moderate on both sides. Obviously, we can, it's the teachers are moderators in this.
That's fine. So if any student has left any sort of message, is it very clearly identifiable for that particular student?
Yes, yeah.
Fantastic.
And so we don't tend to get, we don't have any visibility over that, because that's between the schools and their teachers. So that's sort of
That's a great question, Margarita. Thank you. So any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat about all these really important issues. Right. So are we ready to watch the video now? Is that right?
Yes. So we'll move on to our second guest, who's Emily Gash, who is the national lead for languages for Oasis Academies. And she will introduce herself in the video. Unfortunately, it's her birthday today, so she was unable to attend in live. But we have a kind of pre-recorded conversation between me and her. And as we go, please do ask us any questions. We will pick them up in the chat, or so they will help us to kind of drive that discussion after the video. So I will put that on.
That's great. So if I could just clarify with everyone then, so the video is going to be about 13 minutes long, 13 minutes long. So feel free to write your questions as Charlie just said in the chat. And then what we're going to do after the video is myself, Charlie and Bernadette are going to have a wider discussion around the importance of virtual exchanges in the current climate. And that's particularly when we would absolutely love you to put or carry on putting your questions in the chat, and then we can then respond to them, and then we'll see how we get on time wise on how long and rich a discussion we're going to have. So it'll be really great with the quality of the people in the room right now to give us some really great questions to talk about. That'd be great. And I can see we have another question from Margarita as well. If they oh right, okay. So Margarita's also saying if the students don't get on, I presume that she means, can you change the partners? Yeah. Could you want to just address that question before we go to the video?
The answer is yes. So we can change around the partners. Yeah.
Great.
So yeah.
All good. Right. Do you want to share your screen now, and then we can see
Yes.
Emily's video?
Okay. Just let me know just at the beginning if it's I've got a volume right.
Yeah.
And then,
it should be about 80%. I think we tried in the trial.
Yeah.
Hi, Emily. Great to have you with us. If you could just start off with a quick introduction of who you are, what your role is, and your kind of link to Bili, that would be great.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me to speak. I'm sorry I can't be there live. I'm Emily, and my role has been Head of Faculty at Oasis Academy Southbank, which is based in Waterloo. And more recently, I am the National Curriculum Lead for the Oasis Trust, Multi-Academy Trust, which is comprised of 21 secondary academies across the UK. There, my role really is to help improve the MFL context, which is predominantly French and Spanish, but some German as well. But also, I've been responsible for creating a...
It's gone quiet, Charlie. Do you want to just press pause and start again from that point?
Yeah, sorry. Let me just I'll go backwards. Is that all right now?
Press play again. Yeah.
Which is predominantly French and Spanish, but we've got some German teaching schools as well. But also, I've been responsible for creating a curriculum and working on rolling that out and the uptake of that across those schools. Again, with the view to help improve teaching and learning and ultimately results in MFL.
Great. We started a little bit about getting Oasis Southbank initially set up on Bili about must have been a bit earlier than this time last year, and we ran a trial, and now this year we've had both Southbank and Shirley Park using Bili. Perhaps you could run into a little bit of the, I suppose, the experience of Bili, what attracted you to setting up an online exchange in the first place, and kind of what the potential you see in that both as your role as a classroom teacher, but also kind of like looking at a national role.
Yeah, sure. So I think, you know, I think as languages teachers, probably we would all agree that the most exciting thing, and potentially even the thing that we remember from our experience of learning languages at secondary school and at university, was that connection with target language speakers, or authentic speakers, or, you know, real speakers, and that kind of spark of excitement that you get from doing that. And I've been conscious the last couple of years in developing the curriculum for the Oasis MAT. I've been conscious that it's, you know, with a lot of work, you can integrate everything that is required. So, you know, literary text, opportunities for listening, opportunities to experience authentic materials, etc. But what I was finding challenging was not only at South Bank, but also across the other academies that I was working with, is that because discretionary budgets for the heads of department seemingly getting tighter and tighter, opportunities for trips, which I think would be probably the most important way that we can help expose those our students to, you know, that spark of speaking to someone in the target language authentically. That would be, you know, the ideal opportunity, of course, but with budgets getting smaller and smaller and tighter, Bili just struck me as a brilliant option to help integrate that, to run alongside the curriculum, really. So students are, you know, still getting everything that they need in terms of their exposure to the curriculum, but also having the opportunity to speak authentically, spontaneously to someone their own age, which I think is part of that excitement, isn't it? And Bili just struck me as an excellent way to kind of bridge that gap. So where trips perhaps weren't possible, you know, Bili is an excellent tool, I think, to still provide that opportunity to use language authentically.
Yeah, and I think that's you know, we've had quite a lot of schools coming to us, obviously, over the last year with the lack of trips around actually, well, how can we have that spark, that real connection?
Yeah.
And I think you know, certainly we see our place there, but I think also within the sort of broader context of when you do have trips up and running and you do have exchanges, if you're fortunate enough to be able to do that, having that continual and inclusive environment, which actually is easier to get online, because even if you run the trips, can you involve all of the students? That's so actually so I think that's something that's important for us too.
And also Charlie, I'll add as well, like lots of schools were, some schools don't even have a subject specialist running the department, and so the logistics behind running a trip are huge as well, and for some schools it's just not an option. So to provide as many students as possible with the opportunity to speak to someone authentically, I think it's so invaluable.
Absolutely. And moving on a bit onto the sort of, I suppose, the more practical side of things, and you know, your experience of Bili and the experience that we've had through sort of South Bank and Shirley Park, are there any sort of, I suppose, just very quick tips that you might give to a teacher or a head of department who's kind of considering signing up their school for Bili going into next year?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest appeals is that, as I've mentioned, of course, that kind of spark for a student to have that connection with someone of their own age in the target language country. But also it's worth bearing in mind that another big appeal, I think, is that the tasks that you can set on Bili are set by the teacher. So you can kind of mirror them to GCSE tasks. So the students are still getting that practice and mirroring the curriculum, which is why I use that phrasing of, I think it's great to run alongside, like, and have parallel to your curriculum, because it can be a great tool for them to practice their reading as well as their writing. But in terms of tips, yeah, I think probably the biggest thing would be building traction and excitement in the classroom about it. So ideally that would be done face-to-face, which has been one of the challenges this year, of course, but I think getting the children really excited about this opportunity and letting them know that they're lucky as well to have the opportunity to connect with someone in the target language country. And there is a video, I think, Charlie, that can help teachers do that. So I think there's a video that you could show to this.
Yeah, we've got a nice little animation which kind of goes through.
It's great. It's great. Yes, and then probably another top tip is to keep checking in with the teacher who you will be paired with in the target language country, because I think the traction needs to kind of be kept up for as many students to be onboarded as quickly as possible, because I think as soon as the students see that they're paired with someone, that excitement continues, and participation levels will be higher.
Yeah, I think absolutely it's part of those expectations between the teachers, which I think are really critical. Yeah. And we don't tend to get too involved in saying, you need to do this, because actually it's a relationship between the teachers on the exchange who kind of need to set that. A couple of the exchanges we've seen recently, they've actually kicked off with just a very short video call, or sent a video message to the other class for that first lesson, which just gives that buzz and makes it all real, rather than, oh, well, I'm just talking to another avatar on my screen. There are real people in the other classroom.
Exactly.
And I think that's the sort of thing that seems to work really well, and just get that starting with a bit of a bang.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I think if they can see things happening fairly quickly, that will help improve the participation rates.
Mm-hmm. Just touching quickly before we finish on a bit of, I suppose, broader issues. The first thing I wanted to kind of touch on was a little bit, I suppose, obviously previous year of lockdowns, and more than a year now, and various disruptions, we've turned a lot to technology. How sustainable do you think this change is going forward? Do you think we're rushing to get back to normal in language teaching, or actually other sort of things that you'd like to maintain from the experience of you and your the teachers at Oasis going forward? So
I think we're presented with a brilliant opportunity now to integrate technology more deeply into our teaching and learning. Not only the teachers but also the students are much more au fait with how to use technology effectively. The challenge, I think, is working out what is most helpful to us as practitioners in the classroom in helping our students to progress as quickly as possible. I know that in September there'll be a lot of talk, of course, around catch up and how we can most effectively help our students to catch up. Personally, I think the best way to do that is to just have, excellent teaching and learning wherever possible. But there are a lot of programs out there that will help deepen our students' understanding of MFL and also help them progress as quickly as possible. I do believe that Bili is one of those, certainly not only for the types of tasks that you can set on it, as I've said previously, mirroring the curriculum, so they can be really targeted to what you want them to practice, but also, of course, that motivation and engagement, which, as we know, is just so vital for our students. So I think Bili will be invaluable moving forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think it's very important that it's not technology for technology's sake. It's actually around, well, what's the benefit in terms of teaching and learning, and
exactly that. Yeah, actually, I'll pick up on that point, Charlie, because I think there will be a lot of talk around technology, and what I want to avoid is, for example, I don't know, doing an online crossword for a settler at the start of a class, for example. For me, those activities don't add much, and they're not going to help your students progress. So it's about using technology in a smart way and working out which programs are going to best help.
And the final little question, part of our title of our webinar today as well, is also, I suppose, around keeping these connections and why these connections might be important following Brexit as well. And I wonder what your sort of take on that is.
My take on that is that, well, coming from an Oasis kind of point of view, is, a lot of our academies are based in communities where students come from low socioeconomic backgrounds, and so a lot of the the curriculum focuses around broadening their horizons, which I know it's a phrase banded around quite a lot in MFL, isn't it? But really, the students that we serve at Oasis it's really about helping our students understand the world around them, where they don't always get opportunities to explore that in their home environment. And so MFL, I think, is just one of the subjects in the curriculum offering that can do that so well, arguably the best. And so I think to offer that connection, not only to a student, not only beyond their postcode, but beyond the UK, wow, I just think that's so important, and for our students to grow up as well-rounded individuals who understand the world around them.
It's a direct impact on mobility, isn't it? They can see that they can do something and be somewhere else, and it's
yeah, exactly.
I think we're preaching to the converted probably on this call.
Well, we are, aren't we? But yeah, I know that you'll all understand what I'm trying to say. But yeah, just making them see that there's a world beyond their postcode, which they don't always get the opportunity to see. So.
Okay, that's brilliant. Well, thank you very much. And I'll stop recording now.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Awesome, that's lovely. That's great little video and some lovely comments in the chat. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have a wider conversation around the power and the importance of virtual exchanges, picking up on some of the things that Emily so eloquently mentioned there. I've written some notes when listening to Emily. Not using tech for tech's sake, using tech in a smart way. Always focusing on the importance of excellence in teaching and learning. Couldn't agree more. Inclusivity, and then sort of the logistics of running trips in this COVID situation we find ourselves in, and also the post Brexit environment that we find ourselves in as well. So at this point, I would absolutely love to introduce Bernadette Holmes. I'm sure everyone knows Bernadette, but if it's okay, Bernadette, if you could introduce, give us a little bit of background about yourself and your thoughts on the power of virtual exchanges, and then we'll carry on taking questions from the audience, and then we can have a conversation, a little bit like what Charlie was just doing with Emily as well on this whole question. So first of all, thank you so much, Bernadette, for agreeing to come along tonight, and over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be with you. Introduction about me. Well, if you don't know me, I suppose the most important thing is, and there's no reason why you should know me, is that I am an absolute dedicated European global citizen linguist. Now, that's not just spin. I really believe that languages are at the core of our education system, or they should be. I don't believe that policies over many years have always enabled that to happen. And that's really a cause of great sorrow for me. I think we were nearly there, but now we face yet another epistemological battle to make sure that we remain true to the principles of language learning, and language learning cannot be separated from intercultural understanding. And I couldn't agree more with the inspiring words that Emily has given us. This understanding the world beyond your postcode. What a wonderful thing to say. And not simply your postcode, beyond your town, your environment, your region, your country, beginning to see the world globally. Now, what's this got to do with Bili? Well, the technology enables us to do that. And if there's one lesson that we have learned from the COVID period, which has been so destructive in so many ways, but there is a positive to it. We can turn it into a good. And that is the fact that through technology, we have been able to sustain as much as we can links with our classes, links between pupils, and also between classes in countries abroad. And that's remarkable. And if we can build on that through systems like Bili, and obviously with the expertise that Joe has and that Charlie has to support us, this seems to me to be a way that we can intensify and deepen the input, both linguistically and culturally, that we require to invigorate the languages curriculum and to ensure that it doesn't just stay within its capsule of languages simply as a rather limited lexical input, grammatical input. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in using and learning language to construct knowledge, to construct a greater personal development for the child, which enables them to prepare themselves for the challenges around them. And there was something I was going to sort of say to you, which I think Bili can assist in developing in our classrooms, and that's this whole nature of what it is to be global. And one of the things that I've done, apart from teaching and working with language policy, is to research. And one of the areas of research that I did was looking at what we really learn through languages and what employers need when we say we have language skills. It's not just the skills they're after, it's a mindset change. It's behaviors, it's values, it's attitudes. It's becoming ready to face the world around them and to work with others, to mediate with others who have different language codes, different cultural behaviors, different norms, and to actually learn from one another and to be able to be flexible, culturally agile, and really, in a sense, equipped to be a global citizen. That phrase that was so demeaned by a previous prime minister that we won't perhaps remember in the future too well. But Theresa May once said, oh, sneered global citizenship. Well, actually, I think that's the heart of it all. And something I was going to mention to you is in 2018, for the first time, PISA started to look at global competence. And surely our languages classrooms and technologically enabled languages classrooms will be contributing to that area. Let me just say what then, if you are not aware of this is what they said about it. Global competence is the capacity to examine local, global, and intercultural issues. Theme in the current GCSE, no? Thought so. Next one, to understand and appreciate the perspectives and worldviews of others. That's this whole underpinning of the program of study, this escape from insularity. That's what Bili enables you to do. To engage in open, appropriate, and effective interactions with people from different cultures. Wow, we're doing that for real. Emily has shown that with the examples she gave. Authentic, she said, spontaneous interactions. Also ones that can be asynchronous if we want them to be, orchestrated by the teacher, using those transcripts to really build and enrich and deepen our understanding of what it is to communicate. Really fantastic. And then this final one here, to act for the collective well-being and sustainable development of all. Languages as part of that, not an outlier, not just a bunch of words and a bit of grammar, but actually constructing knowledge, skills, and understanding which help us to really engage with making a better society for the people immediately around us and the people that we want to work with virtually or face-to-face around the world. Well, that's what I'm about. And I think Bili can enable us to do that. Now, I'll stop now because probably there's all sorts of things that people...
No, that's brilliant. As Jimena just said, such wise words. Absolutely brilliant. Charlie, did you want to sort of come in at this moment and talk a little bit about what you took from what Emily said and what Bernadette has just said as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was just doing a lot of nodding way through that. No, absolutely, and I think just picking up on some of the comments through the chat as well. I think I didn't, in terms of kind of what we were talking about earlier, I didn't really specifically pick up on culture, and I think this culture and cultural agility is obviously central to what we're doing. I think it's really, really important. I think that we don't sort of orchestrate what those topics and those tasks should be and those exchanges between the students, because it is about those interactions and how that happens, between how the teachers coordinate the exchanges between them, how that's kind of built between those kind of exchanges and those learning about the slightly different ways of viewing the world or different experiences, and getting that from a peer so valuable, and that is really, that's what Bili is about, and that's what we that's what we do. So yes, thank you, Bernadette.
That's brilliant. I think at this point, because it's quite a bijou group, as it were, I think I'm going to give everyone the option to turn on their mics and their video cams. Sorry, what I mean by that is I'll give them the option, and then I'm going to ask a couple of people if it's okay to come on the mic and maybe just extol the virtues of cultural exchanges, virtual exchanges based on their experience, because I can see some really lovely comments in the chat. So if that's okay, I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to give people the option to start the videos if they want to, and also they can unmute themselves if they want to. So I'm putting people on the spot a little bit now, but Susie, would you be willing to turn on your microphone and your video, and just because you've written some lovely comments in the chat. In fact, if it's okay, if I just read out the comments and then you can add to those. So Susie's
Absolutely,
written.
that's fine, Joe.
Great. So Susie's written. Totally agree with what Emily is saying. I think I just get excited, just as excited as the pupils when a parcel or a Padlet arrives. In COVID times, with some of my lovely lower ability classes, this has been the most motivating thing all year. And then she goes on to say, the importance of cultural exchanges is also highlighted in the Language Trends Survey, the RIPL research supported by Bernadette, and it's alluded to in the recent language reviews from Ofsted. Shame in my own personal opinion, more wasn't made of culture to complement the three pillars. For me, culture is the golden thread that runs through the other three pillars. It motivates, so I imagine Bili will help teachers with that, especially since we no longer have access to eTwinning, unfortunately. Sorry, it's a passion of mine. So with that passion, Susie, do you want to talk a little bit further about your feelings around what you've seen tonight and the power of virtual exchanges based on your own experience?
Yeah, well, first of all, just thank you to the speakers, because I think after, it's just always good to be around people who share that same passion for all things cultural. And I think, like Emily said, we are we're wanting to try more and more, especially in COVID times, to connect with our students up. And I think it's harder than ever, but it's still worth absolutely every single minute that we spend as teachers doing that. And I think what Bili has demonstrated this evening is that actually, in some ways the platform takes away all of that hard work. So I think it's a ready-made platform where teachers can easily connect with other teachers and like-minded educators. So I think that's fantastic. And I think, I said I could listen to Bernadette all day. I think it is really, really important to stress the importance of culture, because not all of our learners, unfortunately, are as passionate as perhaps we are as languages teachers about the vocabulary and the grammar and the structures. But I think I've yet to find a student who isn't excited about learning about similarities and differences between their peers overseas. So we've been really fortunate in my schools over the years to be supported by the work of the British Council. So I know John's here this evening and Vicky Goff, and just to say a huge thank you for all the work that they do as well, because I think, there are lots of people out there. Anna Granger's on the call, fighting really hard to get the message across to people who determine policy, that actually we need more support, we need more funding, and that this is a really worthwhile endeavour that teachers feel really, really passionate about. So yeah, I do think it's a real shame that the recent Ofsted reviews don't make more of culture. There is obviously a mention of the importance of culture, and there's a reference to the national curriculum programmes of study. But I think a lot of the emphasis is obviously on the three pillars, and not the fact that culture runs through all of those pillars. I don't really think it should be a pillar on its own, because then it's kind of seen as an add-on or something separate. I think it's got to be seen as something that is inextricably linked to everything that we do in our lessons. So yeah, that's my take.
Thanks so much for coming along tonight, Susie. That's brilliant. No, that's great. Anna Granger, can I ask you to turn on your video and your microphone, and just from a primary perspective, and then I'll go to Lisa as well, if that's okay, Lisa Bo, if that's all right. And then we'll come back to Bernadette and to Charlie. I just think it's lovely to incorporate different voices in the debate, if that's okay. And over to you, Anna.
Sorry, the light's not very good in here.
Don't worry, we can hear you fine.
I haven't done my hair, so international links are absolutely essential. I mean, I work, as I think Emily said, in a school. I'm in primary now, as secondary trained. I've taught adult education, and I've been working in primary for the last 7 years. And our school, has some very, very deprived families in it, who have barely been out of their own roads, let alone had the opportunity to go and experience culture in other places. And we sort of used eTwinning an awful lot. It's a huge, huge, huge loss. And about a year ago, a friend and I decided we were just so frustrated with everything that was going on in languages, and we decided that we were going to really start fighting. So to cut a very, very, very long story short, we have got, I think I've just put in the chat, we've had some really good news today. We've got our MPs on board, we've got the universities in Coventry on board, and we have been sort of speaking to them for probably the last 6 months or so. Set up a project in Coventry to sort of create like a city of languages. And I've just had an email tonight, so I'm so excited about this, that one of our MPs, who's been a fantastic support actually, she has written to Gavin Williamson demanding more funding for MFL, which is a great start. I mean, there's a long way to go. It's been a hard slog, and we sort of need other people to write to their MPs and to sort of ask if they can do the same. But I mean, it's I love what Charlie's doing. My only problem from a primary point of view is that we don't have any money. And I had a meeting last week with a primary school very close to us who had been put in contact with me. And they used to use a secondary school who came in and taught their MFL, one of their sort of the schools where a lot of their children go to, who were charging them. Everybody, is trying to make money these days. All of these schools, academies are trying to sort of sell their help rather than, help each other. Whereas we're sort of, my colleague and I we are working literally 24/7 at the moment for no money. We're not being paid for this, but we just want to improve things. So you can tell me to shut up if I go on for too long. And and they were sort of saying, that the money's run out. They can't bring this secondary school in anymore. They can't use agencies anymore. They've got to bring it in house. They've got to get their class teachers teaching languages. A lot of them don't have any experience of languages, and they don't really know where to start. So we were talking about schemes of work. We were talking about websites they could visit, and everything. The question that they asked me to absolutely everything was, is it free? Because we have no money. And we are doing this on zero budget. And, I think the MFL community are amazing. There is, everybody wants to help each other. There's so many webinars that Joe's putting on all the time and what have you, but we absolutely need money. And, Charlie, what you're doing is fantastic. It's a fantastic way to get children to sort of link up in different countries. And I totally understand that you can't offer that for free. But we need that funding from the government in order to be able to allow schools to actually take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very important and sobering point, Anna. And again, I know that lots of people have been saying in the chat about the fantastic work you've been doing in Coventry. I'd like to say as well in relation to the recording. That I think it's amazing what you've been doing and beating the drum for languages. I know there's other people in the session right now that likewise have been beating the drum for languages for many years. But I think what you've been doing in Coventry has been absolutely amazing and fantastic. So thank you for your contribution. I'm aware of time. I'd like to hand over to Lisa now, if you're happy to say something, Lisa, on all the virtual exchanges and connections you've been making over many years. What are your thoughts, for the benefit of the recording, on the power? No pressure, on the power and importance of making those connections and getting the students. Let me get the quote right. To move away, a world beyond your postcode. How do you get the students to move away from their postcode using virtual exchanges?
Okay. Can you? I have unmuted myself.
Yeah,
yes,
we can
that's
hear
okay.
you. Yeah, loud and
So
clear.
I can only see you. I can't see me. That's fine. So I was just going to say that we've been at one of the schools I teach at. I teach at two schools. One of the schools I've been teaching at now for about 15, 16 years. We've been involved in eTwinning for that long. And it really brought, having links through eTwinning with a school in Spain, really transformed the school and really transformed the thinking of the pupils. It's not a school that has a lot of children that speak English as another language, but we did have, quite a few. And when I first started there, those children would not want to talk about the languages they spoke at home. And they would also almost see it as something they needed to hide. And I was like desperately trying to encourage them to celebrate this, because it's really special to be able to speak a language. And through that first project we had, I think two things came about. First of all, children could see a reason to learn Spanish, because these children were communicating with them in Spanish and they could see their peers. I mean, they love talking to me, and they still don't believe I'm not really Spanish, but they loved the fact that there were children their age that were communicating with them and gave them a real purpose. And they wanted to know, how do I say this, miss? How do I say this? And they really felt that was important. And secondly, the children that spoke another language at home could see people that spoke a language other than English. And little by little, they wanted to share what their languages they spoke. And they wanted to say, oh, well, I can say this. And in my language, it would be. And little by little, I wasn't dragging it out of them anymore. They wanted to share. And then we started having things like We All Smile in the Same Language assemblies, where I'd encourage children that spoke other languages to go, do you want to come and share some of your language? And I had children reading poems. I had kids that had never, ever spoken in an assembly before. I had, the hard knock of year 6, got on stage and recited a poem in Arabic. I nearly, honestly, I had tears in my eyes. I was so excited. A child that spoke Polish read a poem, and there was a little lad in a younger year who didn't speak very much English at all, who burst out laughing, and everyone turned and looked at him, and he said, but funny, and he was trying to say it was funny and you didn't understand, but I did, and it was really cool, and that to me is one of the joys of having those links. And over time, we've had links with other countries. We've had opportunities for the children to meet. We haven't had any the meeting children face to face, but they've met adults face to face from other countries. Sorry about my emails. And they've been able to exchange via video, via video conferencing, via Skype. We've currently got an Erasmus Plus project with Spain, Germany, Austria and Turkey. And we've got 2 families at school that speak Greek. Damn COVID, those kids were ready to speak Greek to our Greek partners. They were so excited about sharing their language. Their parents too. We've got families that have relatives that speak other languages that have said, oh wow, you're doing a bit of Swedish, oh look, we can do this, and they all come out of the woodwork, and it's just brought the school alive and makes there are no outsiders here, and our diversity is our strength so much more powerful. I'll shut up now.
No, that's brilliant. No, please don't.
Right.
Shut, well, yeah, but just again.
I could go on for hours.
Your all the testimonials so far tonight, I think, is absolutely reinforcing what we've been hearing from Charlie, from Bernadette. I'm just going to finish this section, if it's okay, with Gillian Campbell-Thau, who's coming to us live from Glasgow, and then I'll come back to Charlie and Bernadette. So over to you, Gillian. Do you want to talk to us about the power of virtual exchanges from your point of view, and having listened to examples from primary and what have you? Over to you, Gillian.
Hello, lovely. It's great to see you. Hello, Charlie. Lovely to see you. Long time. Notice you've had your hair growing a bit. Lisa, you've had your hair cut since the last time I've seen you. I know it's been ages. Bernadette, I think I love you. So there we are. I was just like that. Oh, so good. I think what's been really interesting for us, particularly during lockdown, is we've looked at people have used technology and been able to kind of manage those kind of exchanges. And Susie, you know, huge fan of yours, and you know, we're always kind of talking about the work and stuff that you do and about culture. But one of the things I was training some primary teachers, and I was saying to them, you know, for me, that whole cultural thing, you see when the kids go, oh, see that wee moment when it's something. I mean, I remember, you know, as someone, and I don't feel sorry for me, right? But we were poor. I didn't go on holidays, and when I got to secondary school, and there was these posters in the class, and I was like, what is this? And where do I get it? And what our tap is, and is that even a boat? And there was that whole, I mean, that's all literacy, that's all excitement, and you're drawn right in because you can't learn language in a vacuum. You know, you need to know about culture it's such an intrinsic part of a language, and it's something we discuss often, particularly when we're talking about Gaelic learning here in Scotland. And so what we've been able to do during lockdowns, we've seen a lot of our schools who've got exchanges. We had to get a wee bit sneaky, you know, about platforms and things we could use, because I can't even mention the Brexit word without greeting and getting dead upset. But I think because we haven't been able to use, you know, because of those different things that have happened. In Glasgow, we've got a number of kind of twin cities, and the first thing they're saying is, you know, can we still communicate? Can we still do things? And you really need that. And I think we do need to look at alternatives now. We're not going to get that same going away and being able to go, you know, to another country just as easily as we had done. And people are naturally quite scared about that. You know, they're not cutting about in Valencia like you, Charlie, you know, having a lovely time. But certainly, I mean, even from a kind of positive note today, we're having modern language assistants from the British Council are going to be joining us for the academic session. So we had a wee Teams call with them today, and I was laughing because I remember going my year abroad, and you know, 25 years ago, and you rocked up with your letter. You had a letter. Hello, I've just travelled across, you know, the water, and here I am. So for us, sometimes that's the first person, you know, that speaks another language that some of our children are going to meet. Now, you cannot underestimate the transformative power of being able to communicate in another language and understanding what's special about a culture, why people love the music they do, why that food's special, why the films are, why the customs are. And I think I have to say, Charlie, I'm quite excited about, you know, the way the whole platform's looking. I emailed you earlier on, so I'll catch up with you. But I think we really need to look at how we are creative. And I do feel sorry for you down in that England people, because it's so different to the way we do things north of the wall. You know, it's you know, we've got a bit of funding. You know, we've got great support for languages. We've got a national languages policy. So just move yourselves up north of the wall. We'll have a lovely time. Right, and we'll make sure that we, you know, that we're able to kind of transform that together. But yeah, it's been a great session. Thanks so much. I've really enjoyed it, and I'd just like to say, beaming in straight from my bedroom. So I'd have done my hair, Joe, if I'd known you were going to ask me.
Well, I know you've always got something to say about languages, Gillian. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming along.
Pleasure.
Brilliant. Right, so Charlie, could you maybe pick up on a couple of points that have been made so far?
Yeah,
I mean, I know we're sort of like preaching to the converted here, but why not? Why not champion the importance of culture and language learning and virtual exchanges? So Charlie, do you want to pick up on a couple of points, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just as a Glasgow Uni graduate as well, I'm, you know, can see the temptation of being north of the wall too there. But yeah, a few things I kind of wanted to pick up on there. I think one thing was really important was that idea that actually speaking another language is something that they can do and that they can see. You know, I think I've heard, I think it was perhaps Rachel Hawkes I heard speak a couple of times about talking about this idea of future self, that they can kind of project themselves into that scenario, and there's those little sparks that happen really early, and actually being like, well, this is something that I can do, this is something that can affect my life. And you know, getting that and actually having those opportunities for all students as early as possible in their sort of language learning journey, I think it's really important. And you know, lots of people talked about eTwinning and the opportunities that they've had through that. And I think you know, what we do through Bili isn't creating new technology that's going to do this and that. And it's actually packaging that technology in a way that makes it accessible for teachers to coordinate these exchanges and to extend that opportunity more broadly. because we know it's a lot of work. I think, you know, you ask any sort of languages teacher, we all understand the importance and the potential value from exchange, virtual or otherwise, but being able to coordinate and offer that as broadly as we would like to is really difficult. And so that's kind of where we sit. And, you know, I think those stepping stones to actually, you know, to have that first spark to pursue a language, to have that first communication, that first friendship, be able to see yourself in the culture has to offer. I think that's really, really key. The only other thing I think going back to eTwinning slightly, I think that's one of the things where the Erasmus replacement Turing scheme really falls short, is that where is the provision for schools, for exchanges between teachers, for virtual exchanges? Because actually, if you're only offering that at university and higher levels, which realistically that is what's happening at the moment, then how do those students who actually haven't really had those opportunities to look much beyond their postcode, how do they actually access it? And I think, you know, getting those opportunities in it as early as possible is really, really key. And I think that's my sort of notes that I've got there. So
that's brilliant, lovely. So I'm aware of time. I'm thinking if maybe Bernadette, if you're happy to sort of take us home, as it were, and round us up on a few of your excellent, well-perceived thoughts, and then we'll wrap up there, if that's okay. So over to you, Bernadette, with a few final thoughts, maybe.
Thank you, and thank you so much, Joe, for putting this together, and Charlie for all the work you're doing, providing this technology and the technological expertise and support. I mean, it strikes me that what is so important, and it's inspiring to hear everybody, and I'm so relieved to be among people who share the same principles and are actually enacting those in their teaching and giving that rich learning that youngsters deserve and must have. And it is about opening hearts and minds, isn't it? It really is a question of making sure that there are opportunities for young people to understand that their world is relevant and important, and we respect it, but there are other ways of seeing the world. There are other ways of expressing what you feel. There are other values and other approaches, and that's incredibly important, because if we're thinking about the word Brexit that Charlie mentioned earlier, how much of Brexit was a result of not enabling everyone to understand otherness? And that's what we do when we are in a languages classroom. Of course, the words are important, but the words don't exist on their own. They work in combinations, and those combinations express meaning, and that meaning is culturally embedded. And every time we have an exchange with someone from a foreign language, and I don't use that word often because I like to think about languages from other countries rather than being foreign, and in some way to be shunned because it's all, you know, foreign and strange and odd. Well, we must welcome that. But every time, and combat that negativity and that jingoistic attitude which can prevail. But every time we have those linguistic encounters, they are cultural encounters. They are semiotic encounters which give us a fresh perspective. Every single time. So words are not just simply instrumental to get one little, if you like for like, because they are not like for like. You know, even if you take a simple thing in the primary classroom like bread is not the same. It's not understood the same in subcontinental Asia, in France, in Germany, in Spain, in England. Even those straightforward, they are not like for like. They are culturally embedded. They are culturally different. And what we can do with a virtual exchange is offer opportunities which make that reality absolutely accessible to every child. They don't have to leave as long as they've got a computer, of course, and as long as they've got access. They don't have to leave their town to be transported from their town. And that's a really wonderful thing. And I think we can do that with Bili. I think we can really use it. We can use it in a hybrid way. We can front load, so we can flip the learning. We can have things going on before the lesson, have deep interaction in the lesson with ourselves, with experts, and then take it away. And that incidental learning, which comes from the peer partner, is wonderful. And that's the balance. It's what we can do outside of the classroom, guided by us, orchestrated by us, that can enrich and expand the parameters linguistically and culturally. Yes, we can expand the parameters linguistically. Never forget that, teachers. Never, ever. Because the incidental learning is what will drive the motivation of the child. And it's those rich encounters which come from the peer-to-peer exchanges, which we can't replicate in the classroom, but we can provide through Bili. So fight the good fight. Somebody said that on the chat, and absolutely, and I'm with you, and I should be manning the barricades with you, probably to my last breath. Good night, everybody, and it's been wonderful to be with you this evening. Support Bili. Thanks to Joe, and we'll all stick together and we'll keep those messages alive.
I don't have anything else to say, really. I think wonderful words as always, Bernadette. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everyone coming along tonight, particularly those people I put on the spot a little bit and asked you to speak. But it's just lovely to hear everyone being so passionate about languages and the importance of virtual exchanges and the importance of culture and moving away from your postcode. I just think it's been really lovely. And of course, thank you to Charlie Foote for coming along and telling us all about how this is made possible through Bili, and if you want to find out more about Bili, just go to the website, and yeah, thank you so much to everyone. It's been a really lovely evening. Just maybe a final thought, Charlie, just to finish us off with.
Yeah, I mean, I've just sort of coming out of this buzzing. I think from I think we had a sort of a plan of outline of what we were going to be talking about, but actually to have that interaction and it's re-inspired me. I think just hearing everyone's kind of own stories and own takes on why this is important, and so thank you so much, and yeah, look forward to fighting the good fight.
Lovely, brilliant. I'm going to stop the recording now, but that's been wonderful, everyone. Thank you so much.